I'm Chad Harrington, and I'm interviewing Bobby Harrington today, my dad. I'm with Him Publications, and we're doing a series of blogs and videos about the best disciple-making books out there. And there's none better than Bobby Harrington, who is the CEO of discipleship.org and renew.org. And he is reviewing, and during this interview, the book by Brandon Guindon, Disciple Making Culture. Brandon partnered with Him Publications and discipleship.org to release this book in 2021, late 2021. No. This one was released in March of 2021. And it has really helped churches create a disciple-making culture. What we're going to talk about today is the main message of the book, Dad's 3 takeaways, and on top of that, how you can use it with your church for discipleship groups. So let's start with the main message of Disciple Making Culture by Brandon Guindon. What do you say, Bobby?
So the main message of Disciple Making Culture is that as church leaders, you want to create a culture in the church built around disciples who make disciples. And that culture within a church is different than the world. And that culture within a church is more important than any strategy, than any set of goals, than any tactics you might embrace, because culture is more dominant than anything else in a church.
What are your 3 biggest takeaways from this book?
Well, the first takeaway that I want to encourage everybody who's watching with is this conversation around culture is the most important conversation when it comes to disciple making in North America today. So many leaders do not understand that strategy, goals, tactics, they will not survive if the culture is against them. And that the deeper work in a church that wants to embrace disciple making is the work of creating a culture.
So now you're saying culture, not like the world's culture, but the way a church functions naturally.
Yeah, it's the habits, practices, beliefs, and narrative. One person described it this way: culture is simply the way we do things around here. And it's often unconscious. It was conscious when it was established, but then it becomes unconscious. It's just a part of your life. Let me give you an example. In our leadership at the church where I'm at, our elders are committed to praying. We pray every week. We meet at 6:00 on Thursday mornings. And it's not something that we have to consciously decide to do after working at it for 5 years. Now, at first, we had to work at it. Everybody had to commit to get up early. Then we had to get used to getting up early every Thursday. But now it's just part of our culture as elders. And because it's a part of our culture, the week wouldn't feel right if we didn't do it. It's just literally, it's how we function as elders in the church each week. And culture is like that. It becomes like something that you have to think about justifying and explaining because it just has become a part of who you are. And that's the big benefit of the book, number one. Number two, it is a good book to describe the key elements of a culture of disciple making. And those 4 elements are an intentional leader, a relational environment, a reproducible process that you can follow through, and
biblical foundation.
Yeah, but before all that, it's a biblical foundation. So I just think on those 4 key elements, Brandon does a good job of helping to explain how churches develop that culture. And then the third thing, Chad, that I would mention is the whole idea of a reproducible process. This is very important. To have a disciple-making culture, everybody in the church needs to understand the basic reproducible process. So, for example, in a West African context, you would find disciple-making movements use discovery Bible study. And everybody understands how a discovery Bible study works. So when you're a newcomer, you go into a group, you get used to the questions. Then before long, you're participating in that group, you know the questions. And then before long after that, you're actually leading your own discovery Bible study yourself. That is a reproducible process. Brandon's book focuses on the reproducible process of leading a small group where you guide people from being spiritual infants to spiritual children to spiritual young adults to spiritual parents. And so that reproducible process in the real life system, everybody is aware of. In the church where I'm at now, we have a reproducible process with our transformation groups. They start off with a covenant, then they have everyone sharing their biographies, and then everyone works through the trust and follow Jesus material, and then they transition after that for a period of several months to material that best suits the group and the leader of the group. Well, that's a reproducible process. Once you've been through one of those groups, you know how it works, and you can take others through it yourself. And that is so critical. That is probably the most important learning about culture that church leaders can embrace.
Awesome. So as you think about people potentially using this book, trying to make a decision about using disciple-making culture with their either leaders or their church, how would you recommend people use it? What context and how can they use it?
Yeah, what I would do with Brandon's book is I would have my leaders of the church read through it first. I think I want to get all my leaders on board because this work of creating a culture is the big deal. It's the ultimate work you've got to do. Don't settle for strategy. Don't settle for goals. Don't settle for techniques. Go for culture. So I want all of my leaders to read it. I want us to process it. And then I want my small group, or in our case, my transformation groups. It would be a great book for them to work through and process with the leadership of the church. Chad, let me just say this. In 2024, discipleship.org is hosting a national forum on disciple making, and the theme is actually disciple making culture. So we're going to be encouraging people to read this book written by Brandon, and that I think it does a very good job of describing a culture of disciple making and some ideas of how to establish that in your church.
Awesome. For all the details you need to make a decision about using disciple-making culture with your groups, check out the Hymn Publications blog. We have vital information, a theology screening, and housekeeping stuff like, does it have discussion questions included, and is there a video course? We're going to put a link in the description of this video. Thank you, and until next time.